I'd like to welcome everybody here for our sheriff's debate for FOP endorsement. Thank you guys for coming. For those that are watching on video, we appreciate you tuning in to such an important debate that we're going to have here tonight. So this process has been months in the making. The questions that you're going to hear tonight are questions that are directly submitted from the members of this organization, and we are proud that we have facilitated this debate for our members to be able to make the best choice for who they believe should have the FOP endorsement. So when we first decided to put on this FOP debate, the first thing we had to do was find a moderator. We could not find anyone better than Kent Justice. He has moderated many debates here in town. And Kent, when we reached out to Kent, he was very quick to say he'll do anything and everything to help us. Jody even stepped up to make sure that we have a timekeeper, and I can tell you, I really, truly appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys stepping up. So
my pleasure.
I'm going to move on, and I'm going to turn the program over to Kent Justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Randy. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you for the invitation. And absolutely, it was something when that invite came months ago. Yes, because for Channel 4 and what we do, we call ourselves the local station. Is there a big local election going on? I think so. Let's be in that to help people understand who the candidates are. And once we got through last week's primary, who the top two candidates are. And be able to engage in that important discussion. So really cool for me to be part of this tonight because these questions all come from you, members of the FOP, and clearly they've got some insight that maybe I wouldn't have because I'm Joe Blow civilian over here. You guys are working in it every day. These are the questions that are important to you, so I'm really privileged to bring those to you tonight. So there is a format for what we're going to do in question and answer here tonight. The candidates have 1 minute for an opening statement, 45 seconds to respond to the question that I'll pose. And then if there's any clarification that's necessary, as the moderator, I have discretion to ask for that clarification, and we'll have 30 seconds for responses there. There's also a 1 minute closing statement that we've planned on as well. So to begin, I'm going to ask these questions in the order that they came to me. And Mr. Waters. Do you mind if I call you Mr. Waters? You want Chief Waters?
Yeah.
Chief. How's that? So here we go. Both candidates agree that the patrol needs officers added and that patrol morale is low. So with current staffing, how would you increase the number of officers assigned to patrol, and what would you do specifically to build morale?
So I recognize the definite need as far as patrol is concerned. I think from day one when I started this race that patrol is definitely understaffed. It's been 31 years since I've been working here, and I started in corrections. From corrections to the police, we've always been understaffed. So there's a plan in place. I've told every city council member that I've met, I've told the future mayor candidates that I've met, that we have to get the staffing up. We want to make sure our zones, which were never meant to be stagnant, we want to make sure they're equally adjusted so that we'll have the right number of officers in each zone to build it up and make things better for the officers.
Thank you, sir. Should I go backwards and give you 1 minute for an opening statement? I just read the rules that I was going to give you a minute for an opening statement, and I just dove right into the questions.
Well, I'll just say this, and it probably won't take a minute. So we've discussed a lot, and you hear a lot about leadership and respect. I have the utmost respect for every member of this agency. I'm here because I respect you, and I think I should answer to you. I think I should stand here and earn every vote that I can get, earn your support. So I'm here tonight, whether the other candidate is here or not. I'm here tonight to talk to you about some issues that I know you're concerned with. I've been here for a long time. Started in corrections. I remember Purvis. Purvis was one of my training guys, and I remember everything. I had the blue shirt, the light blue shirt. I remember how I felt wearing a light blue shirt when everybody else was wearing dark blue. I felt marginalized. I didn't like it. And I know that there are some things that we have to do to address those things and move forward. I only regret that the other candidate is not here to discuss these things with me, and shows a real lack of respect for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me for getting the opening statement a moment after I said I'd give you an opening statement. Thank you. All right. So we've got one question in. Next question, sir. Do you have any intended changes to the 11.42 hours patrol shift? Do you intend to change the zones alignment? And if so, what changes do you intend to make?
So the 11.42 hour shift is not something that I've thought about. I think a lot of officers are really comfortable in that position. Doesn't say that I won't look at it later on, but at this point, there's no plans on the table for that. When it comes to restructuring our zones, what I would like to do is to look at our zone lines, look at our current or our most recent census, and look at the number of people we have in our city. Try to equal that out as best we can and put the number of patrol officers equally in each zone to make sure that we can lighten that load and get closer together and provide the service to our community that they deserve.
Thank you. In today's climate, many officers feel that having their names displayed on the side of the patrol vehicles is an officer safety issue for them and for their families. Here in Jacksonville, an officer was forced to abandon his own home after a social media post of his vehicle and name went viral. So what are your thoughts? Would you commit to removing officers' names from patrol vehicles?
I'll commit to looking at the issue and basically polling the audience. I think what our patrol officers have to say about that is very valuable, and I think we should listen. We'll take a very close look at that and maybe address that when that issue becomes, and we can find out how the whole of our patrol officers feel through the FOP.
What's the purpose of or the benefit that has been there for having names on the side of the patrol cars?
I think the biggest thing was some ownership, letting civilians know or our citizens know who's driving those cars. But we have numbers for that also. So there's some good things to look at. Now, I don't mind looking at anything within our agency. If it needs changing and the officers feel uncomfortable with it and it's unsafe, then we'll do what's necessary.
All right, thank you. Do you believe there needs to be an overhaul of the Sheriff's Office community outreach program due to the divide between law enforcement and the community? And if so, what's your new plan for community outreach?
So we've had, our police department has major community outreach programs. There's a lot. We'll add to that. And I'll tell you how we'll add to that. Part of my plan, when we build our zones and we build our beats and we make our beats a little smaller, I think we kill a couple of birds with one stone by doing that. I think we make it easier for our officers to have contact with our citizens. And I think you build trust when they see TK Waters on the road. They know who TK Waters is. They know what I stand for. And I get the chance to know them because we're closer together while I'm answering calls at a more reasonable pace and time frame.
Is that any different than how it's done right now?
That is a little bit different. And the difference is we're changing the structure of our beat system, getting closer together, getting closer to the streets. And that's very important. And like I said, there's many things. I could name them all, but there's so many things that we do as an agency to be close. And that's how I want to get better, how we want to improve, when we do that.
All right. Chief, currently there are no line level officers who are afforded the opportunity to have input on policy changes. Would you commit to changing this policy? And if so, how would you change that?
I think, so again, when it comes to discussing our policies, I think the voice of the officers is very important. I think we have to listen. I think we should give the opportunity for officers to have input on some of the things that we put in place. But quite frankly, there's going to be some things at times that we put in place that maybe not everyone agrees with. Partnerships are agreed. Sometimes we agree on things and sometimes we don't. But that's a real partnership.
Thank you, sir. Corrections have been struggling for years in retaining officers and keeping up with vacancies. Currently, more than 100 vacancies in corrections. Current officers regularly mandated to work overtime on scheduled days off. Most that resign say that they're leaving due to the work environment and the low pay. What steps would you take to address this issue with corrections?
We have to make a real concerted effort to get that pay up. We have to keep the best and the brightest in our agency. When I worked in corrections, I remember finishing up an 8-hour shift and a radio call going out saying that you'd have to work an extra 8-hour shift. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable working your days off. It's not comfortable working an extra 8-hour shift when you've already finished your shift. So the plan would be to raise that pay to a standard, I think, above everybody else, because I think we have the best. I think we have the best COs, we have the best police officers in this state, if not the country. So our pay should reflect that.
The standard journalist follow-up question is, how do you pay for that? Where do you find money for that in a budget that's already almost proposed $540 million?
Well, I'm glad you brought the budget up. The budget is a lot more than just money that we just throw around. It is salary and benefits. In order to pay our officers, and I'm willing as a citizen to pay more to see our officers get paid, to keep the very best here in town. It's very important. And we'll go to the city council. We'll look at ways to be able to do that. But there's going to be a heavy focus on getting our officers paid, our corrections officers paid, and our police officers paid.
Chief Waters, many officers feel like we're allowing those who victimize our community a free pass to flee from police. What are your current thoughts on police pursuits, and what, if any, changes to policy would you make on that?
So police pursuits are tough. They've always been tough. What we like to do is make sure that whenever we pursue, we're pursuing for the right reasons. I think it can't outweigh, the pursuit can't outweigh the danger of the public the safety of the public has to be paramount. We have to make sure that's the case. So when it comes to our policy regarding officer involved, the chases and stuff like that, or police pursuits, we have to make sure that we look at the policy, it's reasonable, so officers can do their jobs and do it effectively. It grates on me that we let people go. I've seen motorcycles, I've seen cars, I've seen these people just take off when police are trying to do their jobs, and we can't allow that. We have to look at ways and policies and how to fix that, how to change that. We will.
The first part of that question, this statement is many officers feel like we're allowing those who victimize our community a free pass to flee from police. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I don't think we're allowing them a free pass. I think some of the things that have transpired in the past have made us take a closer look at those pursuits. I sat on the safety board, and I think that we have to give officers the opportunity and the discretion to pursue vehicles when it comes. But we have to be careful how we do that. Be focused on safety first.
Thank you, Chief.
Per the FOP contracts, comp time needs to be mutually agreed upon by the employee and the employer. Currently, the administration has chosen to unilaterally suspend all comp time accrual for all rank and file members. Under your leadership, would this policy stay in effect? If not, how would you commit to changing it?
So I've already discussed this a lot with some people that are around me. And there has to be something that we put in place to allow that to continue. What we've had recently is unfunded liability and issues that arise from saving comp time and then having to pay that out later at the current rate, and it's very expensive. But what we'd like to do is look at possibly doing 40 hours, 80 hours, but it would take a conversation between the current president, and our administrative staff to come to an agreement. It's not unilaterally just getting rid of things. I think we need to talk, and I think it's very important for us to have conversations and to come to solutions with some of these issues.
Does the relationship between the administrative side at JSO and the FOP, does that need to change? Does it need to improve?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think it's suffered recently. It won't suffer under my administration. I'm very easy to get along with. I listen. I think listening more and talking less is very important. I'm not going to just agree to things, but I think when we sit down and we talk to each other, we can come to a solution, a good solution. And it's very, 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 very possible.
Thank you.
Chief Waters, currently more than 70 vacancies in policing. What do you think is the cause? What are your plans to address this issue?
The vacancies in policing? Well, I think there's a lot more than just 70 vacancies. The International Association of Chiefs of Police says we should have 2.5 officers per 1,000 people in Jacksonville. We have about 1.98, so we're probably 500, 600 low. We have to fix that. It has to be changed. I've shouted from the rooftops, and I will continue to shout from the rooftops that our officers, you want morale fixed? You have to fix it by getting officers to help. You want morale fixed in the jail? You have to fix it by getting officers help, getting officers the money that they deserve to work here. I'll shout that from the rooftops. I will fight for our officers and getting more officers on the street.
Is it a combination of those things, combination higher pay, or is it just a matter of we need more bodies, we need more officers, trained people to be in the roles?
There's two things. There's that, higher pay, and then we need more officers. I mean, for so long, we've been capped at 1,860 police officers in patrol. We have about 1,825, 1,820. That goes up and down. We need about 2,100, 2,200. For us to be effective and effectively patrol and work this city, we have to have the right numbers on the street. There's no question about that. And we have to have the right numbers to help our corrections officers inside that jail so they don't have to work, or in our corrections facilities, so they don't have to work doubles or on their days off.
Thank you. The study in science that is show that outer plate carriers are better for the health of officers. Would you support the switch to outer plate carriers for the standard patrol uniform? And if cost is an issue, then would you authorize certain models for officers to purchase themselves?
I don't understand why we didn't go to that years ago. I've been a proponent for that for years. I think it's professional looking. I think police officers, when they get hot, when you wear a bulletproof vest, whether you're in transportation and corrections and the police, when you wear a bulletproof vest over and a shirt over and you start heating up, it's difficult to cool down. I think just important as not getting shot or getting wounded on duty is not overheating and not having exhaustion, not having those issues. And I think it's very important to be able to maybe get to a spot where you can loosen that up, lift it up, get some cool air to get cool, be able to cool down and do your job more effectively. So I'm 100% in favor of that.
What about the cost, if that's an issue?
I think the cost could be offset by, right now we do vest changes every 5 years. I think if we slowly, progressively, and we change those as we do those changes, I think we can do that very, with a very minimum cost when it comes to those vest changes. And I also want to see different uniforms, more flexible, more breathable. We haven't changed that in many years, so that needs to be something we look at also.
Chief Waters, as sheriff, what will you do to help improve pay for judicial officers at the Duval County Courthouse? And will you commit to having some form of promotional process in place for judicial officers?
I really need to look at that. I think that the pay scale needs to increase all the way around for all of our employees. You know, the sheriff's office, the men and women that work here are professionals, and they put their lives on the line, whether they be judicial officers or whether they're corrections officers or whether they're police officers, and they have to be compensated accordingly. So we'll work toward looking at all that and trying to get into a position where we can improve that for our judicial officers also.
What will you do to promote mentoring at all levels at JSO, ensuring that staff members and supervisors have a positive impact on their subordinates?
The patrol sergeant, I believe, in my opinion, is the most important position in the sheriff's office. So the encouragement would be to make sure that as a patrol sergeant goes, his young officers go. As a lieutenant goes, I believe his sergeants go. And I think it goes up like that. I've had the opportunity myself to grab a hold of who I could and mentor them and talk to them about the positives of JSO. I think it's a wonderful place to work. Improvement's always necessary and needed, but I think it's a wonderful place to work. So I definitely promote officers and sergeants and lieutenants and staff members getting out, mentoring younger officers to show them the great side of JSO and what it's about and the possibilities.
Is there a formal procedure or process in place now, or is this something that needs to be developed?
Something needs to be developed. But the smart people that I have around me, we can develop it.
All right, thank you. Would you swear in JSO corrections officers like the sheriffs in Nassau, Clay, St. Johns County? If so, what's your timetable and first step? And if not, explain why, please.
So I've looked at detention deputies quite a bit, and I don't see any downside from where I sit right now. Now, a lot of this stuff, you have to get into office. You have to look at it, and you have to see how it affects the agency. I don't see anything that's negative about it. I've spoken to my group about this quite a bit. And I think there's a very, very good possibility for us to be able to swear in our deputies, our corrections personnel and detention deputies. You know, for a long time you hear non-sworn, 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 but they're walking around cells, they're walking around individuals that have done pretty horrible things. And we don't want to talk about them as being non-sworn. I believe they're law enforcement, so I believe that's a step we should take.
Chief Waters, if one of your staff members has reportedly low morale in their assigned area, how will you address this issue and hold a staff member accountable for a lack of morale?
So I think staff members must be held to a higher standard than everybody else. I am not shy about talking to a staff member when something seems to be failing. Ultimately, because when it comes to some of these things, it's our responsibility to find out, focus, and fix the issues. And if you can't do that, then a staff position is not a lifetime position. You know, it's a position that's an appointment from the sheriff, and if you're incapable of doing that, then we have to readdress that and look at it again and see if we can find someone that can.
You're suggesting you would fire someone from their staff role if there was low morale?
No, I'm suggesting that if there's low morale and it's affecting the way units are run, if it's affecting the way patrol runs, and it's not firing, but maybe back to the civil service rank, if they are incapable of doing the role that they're supposed to do as a staff member. I think that's the way that it should be. I think that as a sheriff, if I win this election and I'm not doing the job, you fire me. You get rid of me at the next election. I think we're all on probation, and that's the way it's always been.
Staff members have publicly spoken out against the appeal process for discipline that's a contractual right of the members. Do you support the employee's right to appeal discipline to the Civil Service Board or arbitration?
Yes.
You still have 35 seconds. I'm just kidding. That was kind of a yes or no question.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So confirming, is your answer yes?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the next question. JSO is the only police agency in the state of Florida that doesn't offer pension to its officers. Many FOP members feel this is negatively affecting recruiting and retaining. So do you agree? What would you do to address this pension issue?
Again, I think that's a conversation with the president, state president, anyone that we can get on board to discuss it and talk to our council members, talk to our mayor to address, especially if it's affecting our agency, then we should address those issues. I was quite a bit disappointed when the pension went away, and I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it come back so that we can get and retain all the help that we need, and we'd have to work with that. But we have a very strong state president. Our current president now is very strong, so it would take some sitting down and talking about ways to do that. I'm all about partnerships. Can't do it all by yourself. None of this is possible by yourself.
Do you agree that the lack of pension is negatively affecting recruiting and retainment?
I have not seen that. I've seen recently that our academy is still pretty full. Now, the long-term effects of not having a pension, I believe they are going to create issues. So I think we should face that and deal with it, talk about it, and see if we can do something about it.
Thank you. If an officer departs from the truth in an internal affairs interview, they are automatically terminated. When citizens testify in internal affairs and are found to have departed from the truth, there are no repercussions. Would you commit to seeking charges against these citizens for making false accusations against police officers?
Yes. I've been a long time, so I worked in homicide for many years. And when someone would come and give us a false statement, I really did not like it, and I really wanted to do something about it. I don't have a problem with it. It depends on the severity of the situation. I think as police officers, we're held to a higher standard, and it affects a lot more if we depart from the truth to internal affairs. Now we have credibility issues when it comes to testifying in court. It's not the same for our citizens, but I do believe that if a citizen lies on a police officer and the severity is there, that we should do something about it.
Thank you, Chief. Currently appointed corrections staff receive parity pay with police appointed staff members. Do you support parity pay with police for all corrections officers?
That's a different question. Let me say this. I think that parity pay is a good thing in any situation. It's very difficult. I know the standards are sometimes a little bit different when it comes to our certifications, but I am not against people being willing to, I'm not against people making the same amount of money or getting paid the same amount of money. But that's something, like I said, we have to bring that up. We have to discuss that with our union, have to discuss that with our city council.
Chief Waters, concise histories are often riddled with groundless complaints from citizens that are unfounded or are closed out and never reported to the officer. As a result, concise history reports can give a false impression of the quality of an officer. Would you commit to modifying the way unfounded complaints appear on a concise history so when pulled by the media, it gives a more accurate impression of the officer?
So here's what I would say about when it comes to a concise history. If it's unfounded, I don't think it should be there. If they're found not guilty of the allegation, it shouldn't be there. So I don't mind looking at anything, any process. I think everything should be reviewed. I think everything should be looked at to see if we can improve, because improvement is our agency going forward. And I want to see our agency go forward. So yes, I would definitely commit to looking at the processes, looking at how we can get rid of things that are on a staff, on a concise history to, so it doesn't appear, so it doesn't paint a picture of a police officer or a corrections officer that's negative.
Thank you, Chief. Currently, JSO investigates its own critical incidents. Do you plan to keep this policy in place, or would you bring in another agency to conduct these investigations?
I absolutely will never bring in another agency. That's not the plan. I think JSO, we do an excellent job of handling our investigations. I think we have a strong set of detectives. I think some of the best in the country that do this job and have been doing it for a very long time. I've had the opportunity to advocate on behalf of police officers, with the medical examiner's office on three occasions that I can tell you about just the last year that I was working at JSO, where they wanted to label something where it should not have been labeled that way. And we discussed it with our state attorney's office. We got with the medical examiner's office, and we were able to talk those folks into doing something different, because the conclusion that they came to was more of a political conclusion than it was a factual one. These are fact-driven investigations, and they have to be.
Thank you, sir. Regarding secondary employment, there's a proposal being considered that would remove the responsibility of scheduling off-duty jobs from JSO and individual officers and give that control and responsibility to a private out-of-state business. Do you support privatizing secondary employment with an out-of-state vendor, which could take millions of dollars from our local economy and officers' individual incomes?
I think I'd have to take a look at that, and I hate to keep giving that answer. This is the first I've heard of that. The way that it's working now, if it's working effectively, you don't change something that's working effectively and affect officers' income. But if it's ineffective in the way it's being administered, I think we should take a look at it and take a look at those possibilities, or maybe even do it ourselves within our own agency, and not privatize it and give it to someone else, but maybe do it But I have to look at that, because that's a different scenario for me. I think that patrol officers and officers that schedule their jobs should be allowed to schedule them, as long as they're adhering to the rules from our secondary employment office.
Is that an issue that the department has right now, or the office has, with secondary employment?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. I don't know that the officers are struggling with scheduling or doing anything that they shouldn't be doing.
Thank you. The rising murder rate and violent crime, it's a hot topic in Jacksonville. Please explain with specificity any new ways you plan to reduce crime that are already not being done currently. Also, give us a specific example of something that you have done in your career that reduced violent crime.
So violent crime it's a good discussion, because it's always pressed really forward, and you look at the news media and it's always violent crime is rising. Well, in 2020, we had 180 homicides. And I use homicides because most of the time that's how people grade our city. In 2021, we had 130. That's not violent crime going up. There's a downtrend in violent crime, slightly up this year. Some of the things that I've done, they're numerous. I mean, we developed an entire division with a section within the sheriff's office focused on fighting violent crime. Whether it be our crime gun intelligence center, our violent crime unit, our gang unit, all working in concert to make sure we address the people or the individuals in our city that are committing violent crime. I didn't get to your second part because she held up the red panel.
Also, give us a specific example of something you've done in your career that reduced violent crime.
So, a large portion of what's happened all over this city in the last couple of years is a credit to our officers and some of the things that we've done within our agency to address violent crime. Now, there's no other candidate, including the one that's not here tonight, that can tell you anything about violent crime and how to deal with it. Actually, she came to our office and said, "I'm surprised because I didn't know you guys did this." And it's simple. It's focusing on the individuals in our community that commit violent crime and making sure that we stop them from doing it. Whether it's following them on Instagram, whether it's following them in vehicles, whether it's putting an officer on each individual gang member that we know are shooters in our town. This is something that we've done. This is something that we'll continue to do, and it's something that will grow because it works.
So I'm leaning into that last part of your response there. It's something we've done. We'll continue to do it because it works. So those homicide numbers are still, like you mentioned, that it's up this year. Is it working? Is it really working?
Sure it is. When you take a shooter off the street and you put him in jail and he's facing prison time and we know that he's committed 2 murders, that's 2 less murders that he can commit. When you take a shooter off the street that we know has shot 5 people and he can't shoot 5 people, that's a direct effect on violent crime in our community. So absolutely it's working, and it's going to continue to work. And we're going to continue to give the officers the things that they need to successfully fight this battle of against violent crime. The absolute information and the way that we do this is incredible. And I would invite anyone to come see it if you want to see it. Thank you.
Chief, are there any old programs, practices, or policies that you've seen throughout your career that are no longer implemented, but you believe should be reinstated? And if so, what are they?
Can we come back to that one? I need some time to think.
Potentially. I might be able to come back to this question.
Yeah, let's come back to it. It's just me.
I got you. I can't deny that. It's true.
The other person didn't have enough respect to show up.
Civilian review boards have been a hot topic around the country. What are your opinions on civilian review boards? Do you plan on implementing them in Jacksonville in any form?
Civilian review boards are emotionally driven investigations by community members when they should be factually investigated. I am not in favor of civilian review boards. I think our police officers deserve to be investigated by policemen, whether it be our homicide detectives or our integrity unit, but they deserve someone that's going to investigate it properly without getting their feelings involved. And civilian review boards across the country are pretty rough when it comes to serving up police officers that I don't want to do, corrections officers that we will not do. I have full confidence in the agency and how we do these things and how we'll do them in the future.
That was my last scheduled question, so I'm going to go backwards one question. Let me restate. Are there any old programs, practices, or policies that you've seen throughout your career that are no longer implemented, but you believe should be reinstated? And if so, what are they?
I would like to see our police officers get back in schools, whether it be DARE programs. I think what we're missing is we're missing the opportunity to grab a hold of the young people before they reach their teenage years or their young teenage years or junior high school years. And that makes it very difficult when they get to junior high school, when they get to high school, to be able to affect them. I know they have their own police department, so that would be pretty difficult. I worked in the community-oriented policing strategies unit. I think we do community policing every single day. I think officers do a very good job at connecting. I think there's always room for improvement, and there's always room to work on how we deliver our service. That's it.
All right, thank you. So that's it with questions. Chief Waters, how about 1 minute for a closing statement?
Okay. So anyway, thank you. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I don't take this is not a joke. This is not funny to me. I think this is very important. I think I'm willing to stand in front of you and answer questions, hard questions, because it's necessary. And you need to know who's running for this office. You need to know who I am, what I believe, and what I think. I am 100% pro-police, pro-corrections. I respect every single one of you in this room. Leadership is not about the color of your badge, a gold badge, silver badge, none of that matters. I think anyone that takes this job in corrections or police are leaders. You're a leader because you're willing to step out from the community and do a job that not many people want to do. And I respect that so much, and I thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and talk, come here and answer some questions that I'm asked. Some of them more difficult, but the fact is, I'm here. I'm ready to be your next sheriff. I'm not afraid to stand in front of you and talk to you about anything. I have nothing but respect for everyone in this room. And unfortunately, my counterpart did not. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
All right, thank you, Chief Waters. And that's going to conclude the debate here at the FOP. My thanks to you for having me be here tonight to moderate and ask these questions.